Aion 2 has already turned heads with its gorgeous world design, action combat, massive raids, and the promise of bringing back the spirit of the original Aion with its faction PvP. On paper, it looks like the MMO fans have been waiting for. But here's the thing, for every exciting review there are just as many unanswered questions. How will the monetization actually work? How limiting will the energy system be? And will the RNG gear progression bring back the same frustrations that burned players in the past? That's what makes Aion 2's upcoming livestream so important. Not because it's going to decide the game's fate, but because it offers NCSoft a chance to address these concerns and show whether they've learned from their past mistakes. So today, let's break down what we know so far, why players are still skeptical, and ask the bigger questions that need answering in the next Aion 2 livestream. Let's dive in. When it comes to content, Aion 2 is aiming big. Whether you're playing solo, in a small group, or want to tackle larger raids, there seems to be something for everyone. From dungeons and time attack challenges to open world activities, faction PvP, and large-scale battles, the game is clearly designed to give players plenty of options right out of the gate. The world itself looks massive with diverse regions, beautiful environments, underwater exploration, and even garrisons scattered across the map, all of it aimed at making Atrea feel like a living, breathing world. But here's where some concerns start creeping in. We still don't know how fast leveling is going to be. During the focus group test, players were able to hit max level within hours, although to be fair, progression was probably sped up for testing. Still, it raises the question, would the early game be meaningful or just a stepping stone to endgame monetization? That matters because of retention. If players burn through the leveling phase in a few days and find the world empty, it's much easier to drop the game entirely. It's exactly what happened with Throne and Liberty. People hit the cap too fast, ran out of things to do, and quit before the long-term grind even began. On the positive side, Aion 2 is ambitious. Between PvE and PvP, there should be enough variety to keep players engaged for a while. And when the inevitable content routes hit, PvP will be crucial in keeping the game alive. That's the strength of player-driven content. It keeps MMOs alive while the devs are working on the next update. Now, speaking of PvP, yes, arenas and battlegrounds are in. Yes, the Abyss is returning, but Ilios and Asmodeus will be separated into different servers for balance, with cross-server content ensuring players from both factions to interact. That may prevent low-level griefing, but it also removes that constant sense of danger that defined the original Aion. Some will welcome that balance, others will feel like the world just lost a little bit of its soul. So, the content is ambitious, no doubt about that. But ambition doesn't mean much if progression feels shallow or repetitive. The real question is whether NCSoft can make all of this feel meaningful beyond the first month. Because we've seen other MMOs launch with a huge checklist of features, only for half of them to end up feeling like a filler once you're actually playing. Combat in Aion 2 looks like one of the biggest shifts from the original game, and honestly, it's probably where people will be the most divided. Instead of the old school weaving and slide-shotting mechanics veterans might remember, Aion 2 has gone for a faster, more modern approach. Chain abilities, semi-target lock, flashy combos, and freedom to move while casting. It feels closer to Blade and Soul than classic Aion, which might disappoint some purists, but the upside is that it looks fluid, impactful, and much less static than a lot of recent MMOs. Players will have access to a wide toolkit, around 12 abilities on their hotbar with chains and special attacks branching out from there. Add in active and passive skills plus the numerous stigma abilities and you're looking at over 40 skills, which would allow enough flexibility for different playstyles without overwhelming newer players. On paper, it strikes a solid balance between accessibility and complexity. Another welcome detail is the camera system. You'll be able to swap between an over-the-shoulder action view and a more traditional MMO camera. Action mode feels great for immersion, but testers noted it struggles in larger raids where visibility is limited. Traditional mode gives you that wider field of view and is better suited for PvP. Having the option to switch is a smart choice, and it shows the devs are at least thinking about different types of players. That said, there are still some question marks. Will the combat retain enough depth for veterans, or will it end up feeling simplified for cross-platform accessibility? Skill effects look flashy but not overwhelming, which is a good sign, but we won't really know how it feels until we've played it ourselves. And while NCSoft has confirmed there won't be any auto combat, which is a relief, the real test will be how well the combat holds up after hundreds of hours of grinding. So overall, combat looks promising, fast, flashy and flexible, but the jury's still out on whether it will capture the same sense of mastery and identity that made the original Aeon's PvP so addictive. When it comes to monetization, NCSoft hasn't revealed the full system yet, but based on their track record with Aion Classic, Throne and Liberty, and Blade & Soul New, the safe bet is free-to-play with premium currency, cosmetics, battle passes, and an in-game shop, most of which has already been confirmed with the exception of the premium currency and marketplace. Now, the premium currency model is generally frowned upon, but it isn't inherently terrible. In Throne and Liberty, for example, premium currency could be farmed, which meant free-to-play players could still access most shop items without spending a dime. The real issue, however, outside of Wells getting a head start, came later. As patches became older, shop items got cheaper, which made catch-up easier for latecomers, but made saving a premium currency for this gear much harder for the current free-to-play players. And that leads me to the core problem. It's not just about whether a premium shop exists, but what's actually being sold on there and how accessible it is without swiping. One detail that really set off alarm bells is gear progression. In Aion 2, gear drops will come with randomized stats, and that almost always means there will be some kind of a reroll mechanic. If you've played Aion 1 during the 4.x era, you'll remember retune scrolls. Dungeons drop gear with random stats and you could reroll them a few times. And yes, you've guessed it, by buying scrolls straight out from the shop. In Aion 2, maybe reroll stats will be tied to farmable materials, or maybe it will be a shop item again. Either way, it's worth keeping a close eye on this, because nothing kills motivation faster than finally getting your best item, only to realize it rolled the wrong stats. Then there is the energy system. Every MMO limits progression somehow, but Aion 2 is going with a stamina style mechanic to cap how much you can grind in a day. And yes, extra entries will be available through the shop. It's not a new idea. We've seen it in Throne and Liberty, Blade & Soul, and even Crystal of Atlan, and it's always divisive. Some may argue that it prevents no-lifers from getting too far ahead, but at the end of the day, it's an unfair system where people with a bigger gaming budget get to enjoy the game's content for longer. To NCSoft's credit, not everything here is doom and gloom. Wings, the single most iconic feature of Aion, won't be monetized. They'll be earned through gameplay. Gear will also have visual progression, so your armor should look cooler and more distinctive as you progress. That's something too many MMOs mess up by shoving all the flashy designs into the shop and leaving in-game rewards looking rather bland. At least here, NCSoft seems to understand that upgrading gear isn't just about stats, it's about the visual sense of achievement too. The user interface, however, looks clean and functional, but it does look very mobile inspired. It gets the job done, but it doesn't have much personality and it doesn't feel distinct from NCSoft's other games like Throne and Liberty or Blade & Soul New. It's another reminder that Aion 2 is a cross-platform MMO at its core, and that some design compromises have been made to keep mobile players in mind. So, where does that leave us? Aion 2 looks ambitious, the world design is stunning, the combat feels fresh and fluid, and on paper there's plenty of PvE and PvP content to keep players busy. The addition of underwater exploration, flexible camera options, and the confirmation that there won't be any auto combat are all encouraging signs that NCSoft is at least trying to deliver a more engaging experience than we've seen in most recent MMOs. But at the same time, there are still huge question marks. How far will monetization go? Will RNG gear progression turn into a shop-driven reroll system? How restrictive will the energy system really be? And can NCSoft prove they're building an MMO that values long-term player trust over short-term revenue? That's why the next livestream is so important, not because it's going to make or break our hopes for the game right now, but because it's NCSoft's opportunity to be transparent and address the concerns players keep raising. If they want Aion 2 to be more than just another Korean MMO that burns hot and dies fast, they need to start building that trust now. For me, cautious optimism is the best way to describe it. Aion 2 has the potential to be something special, but potential alone isn't enough anymore. We've been burnt too many times, and words don't carry weight unless the game behind them actually delivers. So, what do you think? Are you optimistic about Aion 2, or do you think NCSoft is going to fall back into old habits? Let me know in the comments below. And if you've liked this video, please consider subscribing so you don't miss out on future Aion 2 content. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.